Adult content warning. This video contains explicit historical objects and terminology which may not be suitable for some viewers.
Good afternoon, my Scribble friends out there in Scribble land. I beg of you to please voice your questions. I know that my friends there are going to do the type ones. They're going to jump in there, but I really just don't want to be a talking head on this subject because it's something very near and dear to my heart, and I can just yak forever. But you're going to learn a lot more. I'm going to learn a lot more if you're willing to jump in and ask. Ask if I'm going off on terms you don't understand, or if there's something that tickles your fancy, please do. Anyway, so what we're here to discuss, I believe it's what meanings in the margins, something like that. And I'm dying to hear another take on it from another artist with the marginalia. That's going to be great. I will cover a little bit of marginalia, but I want to talk about more than that. I'd like to really concentrate on the images that appear over and over in the illumination, the work around the wording. And when I started on this trek, I really couldn't find anything that really satisfied me about, what exactly, why do we have these things, such as simply, like, I'm going to turn this around and show you. So, just looking at these, and I would, you see these over and over again, things similar to this, right? This is a French book of hours, second half of the 15th century. And again, we call these acanthus leaves. We see them over and over again in many, many different forms, but also the flowers we see over and over again, like these cornflowers and such, we see over and over. And as I said, I could not find anything that really laid out their meaning specifically. There's a lovely book by Celia Fisher that talks about flowers in manuscripts, but I kind of wanted a manual, and there just wasn't such a thing. So I started doing my little research on this. And of course, not only do we have things like, okay, now I'm going to flip it. There you go. Yay. Not only do we have flowers and wonderful things in acanthus leaves, but we also have, these monsters, marginalia, these little guys right here. And why in the world are they there, right? Then we have, and then the question comes is, these guys, as we all know, if you've worked on vellum or pergaminata, or if you've read about scribes in period, they were very good at taking pen knives and scratching away what they wanted to get rid of. And so you think, if something is profane and they didn't want it, then how did this stay around? I know, it's one of my favorites. He's such a happy guy. It's like, it's got to mean something, right? It's got to mean something. And so it took me about 5 years to basically constantly working on a list, and of what these, as I said, I started with the flowers and ended up with the penises, like you do. So I started on my journey. And so some scholars said they meant nothing. A lot of the Victorian scholars, especially, it's just like, oh, somebody's sucking on their paint. It doesn't matter. And then there have been people like Michael Camille, who started writing in the late 70s about, he thought it was all social satire and parody, he was real big on that the illuminators could read, and that was a lot of his things. So they were kind of making fun of the text, and that's been argued back and forth. That they're there for comic relief. That they're that they're just, and they're a nod to paganism. That was one thing that was thrown out also in the 70s by two scholars named Sheridan and Ross. And then the idea that it was a patripaeic. And that really stuck with me. A patripaeic means having powers to ward off evil and bad luck. And that seemed to make a lot of sense to me. But so that, I know I'm skipping around a bit, but that led me, that made a lot of sense with the monsters and so on, that if a space is occupied by a monster, then, you don't need to, a monster won't get in there, or demons won't get in there. But I fell madly in love with, let's see, where should we go first? No, I think I'm going to stick with flowers and sketch first. So we'll start mild and go spicy later. So flowers, and we know the Victorians were all about the language of flowers and so on. But even before that, in Pliny the Elder, a guy named Theophrastus, who was very, very early church father, they talked about the physical world being, tied to the divine, of course. And so the idea that, when you look at something like a carnation, which is called a dianthus, which we know as, or they know as pinks, that represents pure love. And the lily, as we see a lot of times through manuscripts, the lily represents the Annunciation to the Virgin. And so we start this list of things, and you keep on seeing these over and over again. There's the Virgin, there's the lily. And things like violets represent humility. The pansy represents the Trinity, because the pansies got the 3 leaves, or, 3 sections going on there. So they saw those as basically anything that had 3 of it was Trinitarian. So, and please jump in if I say a word you don't know. Anyway, so yeah, mark this one all out. And of course, this is this what we call Bruges style, or very popular in the Flemish regions and so on. And they're like, and again, we keep on seeing these. Ooh, this is one of my favorites. Ooh, I love this stuff. And again, you see these, this is not a very good picture, but the carnations for pure love. You have the columbine, and they believe the columbine looked like a dove in descent, like the Holy Spirit. Therefore, that's what they say, it's to remind you of. And so all these are just absolutely, let's see that, the heath pea, which you don't see a lot. The heath pea down here was a sense of, what I have is departure, but it means to, well, interestingly enough, it's here we have the flight to Egypt. Departure, how interesting. Egypt, departure. Ooh, look, ooh. Anyway, all these things. And again, and then we found acanthus leaves. And those are, ta-da, to invoke heavenly gardens. And then you can see these, and what's cool is here we have the Holy Family is being pursued. What's happening here? Innocent bunnies are being pursued. Gee whiz. I mean, this is not random. But it gets better with age, I'll tell you. And again, here we go with, cornflowers. Reminded, they represent Mary's crown again. heavenly gardens are invoked with acanthus. Roses in Isaiah, the coming of the kingdom of righteousness. So they'll show up a lot when we're talking about, the Christmas story, as we call it. Okay. Yeah, it's like, oh, look, there, it all ties in. And well, I shouldn't say all ties in. We'll get to that. But again, all these fabulous acanthus. And I love this very active angel down here. And he's busy. I don't know. He looks like he's panicking. And then, if you can imagine, I mean, what we have here, of course, is a color Xerox. But if you could imagine that all this area here would be done in what we call shell gold, and there would be this line here that would be done in gold leaf. The back of this would be done in gold leaf. All these little spotties here would be done in gold leaf. And so this would shine when you looked at it, and and sparkle. You see all those, what look like little brown turds here are actually
Gold.
Of gold leaf. Isn't that what? Can you imagine how sparkly and fabulous that would be? And anyway, something to keep in mind. Okay. So I'm not hearing many questions here. I'm getting kind of lonely. Okay. Just saying here. Now, this is one of my big favorites here. This is from, the Bedford Hours. It's a beautiful 15th century French piece. And what we find, again, sometimes they're just creating like, Whoville stuff. You're like, that's stuff Horton hears a who about. I can't trace those. Again, we have flowers again that we can identify. Yes, thank you, Bedford Hours, 15th century French. Yes, thank you. Again, here we have Mary's crown, and we're talking about writing. This is about writing the gospel, of course. And all these marvelous, wonderful things. Now, what's really cool about this is in some things, I'm going to get sidetracked a little bit here, but I just absolutely love this part. So I'm going to get sidetracked. Okay, so back to this guy. So I'm going to jump back here a little bit. Now, we know about everybody, probably everybody here is familiar with the Holy Family on their way to Egypt. And we can imagine what this is. This is the Holy Family, Joseph's going, God, I'm too old for this, stuff like that. But then we have other things like this. You're like, okay, they're walking by and a statue's falling down. What in the world is that? Oh, we know this is from the Bible. The reason why they're fleeing is because King Herod down here, put out an edict that all children under 1.5 or 2 years old were to be murdered. So that's why they're fleeing to Egypt. So that's very clear why that's there. Again, but here we have, why is this guy, okay, so we have soldiers and a peasant, right? What in the world does that have to do with the Holy Family? Oh, and then down here, we see Herod and soldiers. Okay, what does that have to do with anything? All right. What we're going to do, us English speakers had no idea what these things were for the longest time. We didn't know how they tied into the story until a book called The Golden Legend, which was written in the 12th century. It's a collection of stories that medieval people would hear from the pulpit, but also tell each other about people in the Bible and so on. And this is a panel from the Golden Legend. Okay, so I will explain this one first. So in the Golden Legend, as Joseph and Mary and Jesus are heading to Egypt, every time they passed a golden, or not a graven image, any kind of idol, it would crumble to the ground. So that's what's going on here, and that is from the Golden Legend. And then we have this one, which I love. So it's happening. Oh, let's see. Okay, so this is not pictured here. Okay, so we go back here. What happens is Herod, of course, is saying, kill all children under 2. So they're off. He gets and the wise guys, the magi, come to him and say, hey, we know where we're going, and you might want to come along to Bethlehem, because there's, we're following this star. So what Herod says to his soldiers is, hey, go follow the star, and follow that car, kind of thing, the lady with the halo. So they head out. Now, one morning, as as a man is, and I think this might be him up here. There is a peasant, or a farmer, and one morning, I'll let you look at my beautiful face for a second. In the morning, as the Holy Family's walking by, and this guy is broadcasting his seed. As the family walks by, it sprouts. And so by the afternoon, the soldiers come by and say, hey, guy, have you seen a lady with a halo and a baby and a guy, and he says, yeah, I have seen him. And I was just planting this crop when they walked by. Ha ha. So now, no, actually, he's still doing that now. But it's ready to be harvested. So they turn around and go home. And we know that from the Golden Legend. So there are stories that, not out after 1977, us poor people who only read English now know what these mean. But I love this one too. Okay, again, Holy Family. Guy, cutting wheat. Why is he cutting wheat? Because he's that farmer. And here's the guy going, hey, have you seen that lady with a halo and a baby? So isn't that cool? Here we have it again. And here we have the Holy Family. And I just think that's super cool. And so next time when you're looking at a book of hours and you see the Holy Family on their way to Egypt, check out to see if you see farmers and soldiers, and that might give you a real interesting little clue to what's going on there. Okay, so that's helped us a lot. So the Holy Family's walking by, he's broadcasting seed, and as they're going by his land, it comes up, and so by the afternoon, it's ready to be harvested.
Wow.
So he's out there with a sickle by the afternoon. And also, people our ancestors, these people who had these books would have known a lot more about the seasons and how fast crops grew. And they probably know, wow, how terrifying, how close those soldiers were to the Holy Family.
Yeah.
And they got turned around and went home. And miracles everywhere. And this is because the Golden Legend. And so it solved some mysteries of those images that kept on showing up. Is that cool or what? This is stuff from medieval people, so it's not something even 200 years ago they would have heard in church. This book the Golden Legend was assembled in the 12th century. Yeah, these are not stories that your grandma would know necessarily. This is stuff that scholars are kicking up now. This book has just been not very well researched. And I'm finding not a lot of people are as excited about what goes on in the margins. I mean, I've gotten together with other scholars, and all of us can fit in an elevator, all of us that are interested. But so, yeah, it's not this big thing that's pursued, but it's exciting to me. And I hope it's exciting to you. And there's another side of it that I haven't discussed, and that is that Okay, I'm gonna pull this up again. So we know, one is going to have this book. This is, been this has been a wedding gift, very special. But we know that this person is going to spend their life with this book, right? They're not going to have, they're not going to have pulp novels, pulp fiction lying around. This is their book. This is their one book that would be religious that they might have. The point that I think is so exciting is, so they'll know the prayer. For God's sake, you'd memorize that in a week. And of course, there's this. But what they can do for the rest of their lives is they can look at those cornflowers and they can meditate on that, okay? On the idea of Mary's crown, and they can look at acanthus leaves and they can meditate on heavenly gardens, and so when you look at it that way, every single, bit of this can have did have meaning to the people who own these books. And so there's so many layers, and that I think is so super exciting. And we don't think about that and just not concentrating on the words or the picture, but everything in the margins is going to be a stimulus for thought and prayer, right? So again, and we're back to the Bedford Hours because it's big and beautiful. But and here we have, so we have Matthew here because this is his winged. No, that's his winged man. Sorry, like who the hell? That's Jesus. Sorry, Jesus. Anyway, so we know what's going on here. Those are pretty standard stuff. But this one really, really puzzled me for a very long time. So we have Matthew. It says Matthew, St. Matthew up there. Matthew is here. We can see his halo. He's at his writing desk, right? We can see him here. We can see these things, his books out there. Then we see these things. Okay. Everybody who's not doing this by Braille, I hope can see those things. There's two things there. So anyway, I spent a goodly amount of time trying to find out what these symbols were. I'm sure they seem to have some kind of importance. And I finally contacted a friend of mine he's a priest, but he's also he is a specialist on the medieval church. So I said, okay, Richard, tell me here's Matthew, here's this guy, here are these two things. And of course, my friend said, well, it's obvious, Hilarie. Okay, what's obvious? Well, it's obvious that he was the original Dread Pirate Roberts. That rodents of unusual size from the fire swamp. But the point of the story is that even with the Golden Legend, we're missing some stories. This story is lost, and I might find it because I'm still not giving up. Still looking for images, still looking for information. But I just, it's something that to keep in mind. We know what other ones mean. Well, that's pretty easy to figure out. Matthew is baptizing people, little tiny men with beards. Okay, maybe they're 12-year-olds with beards. I don't know. Anyway, but here we go. Now, as far as when does this start using imagery that is contemplative? Well, we have, some of you might recognize the Luttrell Psalter, which is early 14th century, early 1300s. And we have things like the oak tree is a symbol of faithfulness and endurance. That's one of those old ones that we get from Theophrastus. Then we have the little clover here, which of course it's got 3, so of course it's Trinitarian. Yay! But yeah, there's just so much. And if you really don't want to write all this down, you can buy my book, Saints, Signs, and Symbols by Hilarie and James Cornwell. Anyway, so again, now this is getting a little later. This is getting into the like 1430s and so on. I love this stuff. It is so congested, full of art. And I just love it. And again, there's things that we don't understand here, but the acanthus leaves, we get that now. But there's some really wonderful people doing God knows what in these margins. And this, as artists, these are great places to hide things like spaceships and Klingons and Mickey Mouse ears and stuff like that. It's awesome. These 2 little guys with little birdies. These are little tiny hello birdie. Anyway, so but isn't that just gorgeous? Gorgeous, gorgeous.
So we're talking about flora. Did the birds? We see a lot of birds and animals.
Yes.
Do they have meaning?
Some do, yes. Yeah, and this is borage, which you see now and then. Borage, courage and strength of character. Birds did, like, you see parrots a lot, but I don't actually know what parrots mean. But let's see, let's go over this dumb book. There are some that do have, oh, can't remember which is where anymore. Okay, so we do have like the goldfinch, Passion of the Christ, because he's a thistle eater. The chick with hens, sheltering of mankind. But then you also have the cock, which is the sign of the denial of Christ. So don't get those 2 confused. The owl is darkness and solitude. We do see the magpie, not terribly often. Peacock, I love the peacock. They believed its flesh was incorruptible, which is another way of saying it was just too tough to eat, I think. But also, but they also, they believed it was, because it was so fabulous that it was, let's see, what is this? What did I write? Thus being reborn. Okay. That the plumage renewed itself every year. That was another thing that very impressed them. Little quail is from Exodus, the pelican and piety, we all know. And just there are a few that do stand out. Of course, the dove is the Holy Spirit. But sometimes there's just like, well, I don't know why there's these little birdies here. And again, were they important or not? It's hard to say. There's 1 or 2 things. Either we haven't found yet what the meaning is, or somebody really enjoyed painting birds. The Shearborn Missal, for example. I don't know how many people are familiar with the Shearborn Missal.
Nope.
Okay, I'm going to pull it out.
A bit.
It's even better. I have this great book called The Birds of the Shearborn Missal. Yeah, Shearborn Missal was painted by and for the Benedictines. It is outstandingly wonderful. And one thing that is really super cool, and something the ornithologists really love, is they actually even put what they were here. And so that is a mouse cock. I don't even know what that is. Possibly intended to mean, oh, I love it. Intended to represent a great git. Well, there you go. Unidentified. You do have unidentified birds, but then you have ones like this, which is very, very, very clear, a blue, known as a blue tit. And I think this person just really loved birds because they're just outstanding. And why would they identify them? Yeah, just, isn't that gorgeous? Oh, he's so good at this. Anyway, yeah, let's see. Oh, and there's a J. We're calling it a J. Or a, let's see. What is this? Oh, wary hanger or a strike?
Strike.
Right. Yeah. And a stork. Anyway, book is full of fabulousness. Recommended if you are crazy about birds. Janet Backhouse, you can get this for used. Always get your books used. That way you don't feel so bad when you have to put notes in them. Yes. So on
What
to
publisher is that?
oh, oh, look, that one
Has an ISBN.
code. Okay, yeah, that's University Toronto Press. This whole collection of books put out by the British Library are wonderful, wonderful. Anyway, okay. Back to this. Anyway, you guys get the idea. Daisies, innocence, acanthus, again, heavenly gardens. And then of course we have our immortal peacock, which looks more like a pigeon who got hold of a really fancy pie plate, don't you think? Anyway, and yeah, so we have all kinds of yeah, and David, of course, getting in trouble. We know it's King David because he's got the harp. Yeah, and woo. Anyway, now you get the ideas. So are we ready to move on? Yeah, and all these really cool pansies, Trinity, cornflower. Oh, so exciting. Okay, before we move on to our next subject, the second half of our tour, does anybody have any questions?
So the golden, what do you call it?
The Golden Legend.
So is there a book or some journals or that are reviewing that information?
Well, if you're interested, the Golden Legend is available. It's mine is in a soft bound 2-volume set. It is really boring reading. Ooh, boy. oh, it hurts me. Yeah, so here's my very well thumbed copy of my Golden Legend there. Yeah, it's kind of beaten up. It gets loved a bit. It's translated, I believe, from 12th century French. And they weren't very creative in making it palatable. It's just this is what they said. But yeah, you're welcome to slog through it with me and talk to me if you ever want to read it. Talk to me. I would love to talk to somebody about it. Oh! I just found a new plant. Or no, how do I describe this? This is a plant that we've seen in so many manuscripts. And I've never been able to identify it until about 2 weeks ago. And I was so excited. And that is, and I love it. It is it's the European ash tree. Now we see these red berries and they definitely are, we see pomegranates, but these aren't pomegranates. And so this is so exciting because these trace back to Isaiah 44:14, and it represents the established works of man which become their idols, leaving no time for God. And so that would be another image that would be put on these pages so you can contemplate that as well. So yeah, the only way I found that is we in the Kingdom of the West have an award called the Ash Leaf. So I was looking up European ash trees, and lo and behold, here were these red berries. And sometimes they have little white flowers on them. And so I feel like I struck pay dirt on that. Anyway, so and there we go. We have everything. And oh, and hyssop. We don't see hyssop all that often, but there's hyssop. Yay. Anywho, here we are. And our righteousness, strawberries. Yay. And don't you love it? Guy with a cannon. Woo, arm cannon. But of course he's taken out a nasty centaur. So anyway, okay. So there we go. So then there's the other half of things. So that kind of takes care of the flora and a little bit of the fauna, not much. But so we come to the things like nose pickers and you know, vulvas wearing hiking cleats and stuff like that. Has everybody seen the vulva wearing the hiking cleats? Well, okay, I'll have to pull it out because it's important for you adults to see it. No, oh, here it is. Ooh. And what I love, the wonderful thing is, I think it's very clear these people did have a wonderful sense of humor. And in the SCA, we do try to make that busy and ready to go. Now, this is from 1375 to 1425. This is something that has to do with
Looks like a pilgrim's token.
She is. She's on. Yeah, she's got her little poulaines on, right? Her patents on, and she's got her little pilgrim stash and her little pilgrim hat. Yeah, she's ready for pilgrimage. This would be, as we see, it's a pilgrim's badge that would be bought along the way, and this, of course, is another fabulous one. The vulva queen and her court. Anyway. A question? Did I hear a question there? No, there's no dumb questions, honey.
And I was just wondering where I could get one of those badges.
Oh my goodness. Actually, there's several SCA merchants who sell them. Yeah. Oh gosh, I can't tell you that off the top of my head, but they, I know several people who have, who've gotten them in at big events where we have wars.
Yeah, I think there's a big pilgrim's badge pewter company out that merchants out of Penzic. So if you go to the Penzic site and pull up their vendor list, it may be listed there.
Yes, yeah, I think that's your bet. But you can find them, and they are absolutely wonderful, I believe. So let's talk about the other side of this. Let's talk about, as said, the camels and the vulvas, wearing cleats and so on. And again, now, of course, the vulva there, she is, she's a pilgrim's badge. She is not in a manuscript. But yet we have things that, as I said, like the green smiley guy with the beard, that actually, I'm going to, just to remind you in case you'd forgotten, this guy here, he is in a book from 1300 on the codes of conduct for men of the cloth. So, yeah, surprise. Yeah, well, now there's many reasons, of course, as we've seen, for illumination, to, for contemplation and for bringing a more spiritual life and so on. But there is another big problem with medieval books, and that is they don't have pagination. They don't have numbered pages. So when you are reading a book on, on conduct, you might have to remember that you're on the page with the weird guy with the, the pink-headed bird hanging upside down, or the, I don't even know what's going on there. But, these were, as I said, this is in a book on codes of conduct. And so these would help you know where you were in the book, because you're not going to stick a bookmark in there either. So, that's the one thing. But anyway, so what do they mean? There was a medieval scholar, she's passed recently, named Ruth Mellencamp. who wrote the book Averting Demons, which is where the vulva picture is from. She believed that all of these things, the big green penis, the flowers, even the not Viking knots, but Celtic knots, were all to protect the reader and the book against demons. It was believed by people in the medieval age. They believed that there were so many demons that you could not drop a pin from a height, and before it fell to earth, it would hit a demon on the way down, because they were just everywhere. The world was so thick with them. So there was a lot to be scared of now in this time period. And because these are so expensive, and because books are so powerful. Oh my gosh, yesterday I spent a couple hours with a gentleman who collects books, or he what do you call it? He curates collections of books on witchcraft and medieval wild stuff. That's what he does for a living. It's fascinating. That's another day. But these books are so expensive and have so much power, they need to be protected. So Ruth Mellencamp believed, as I said, they were there to avert demons. There are 5 ways in which demons are averted. One is fight fire with fire. Now, we all know that when we dress up in Halloween costumes and so on and so forth, this was a way in the olden days to scare the demons out before All Saints Day, even when you're carving out a little turnip and so on. And especially in manuscripts from the 12th to the 15th centuries, they're just brimming, with butt-headed dogs and chicken-feeted women and all this crazy stuff. And they represented demons. So that little area was taken and did not need to be demonized. It was already demonized. So they were big on that. Okay, so fight fire with fire was number 1 of her way of doing this. Let's see. Distract the demons. Anything bright, dazzling, and dazzling would force the demons away from the vulnerable person or object. Diverting evil spirits, attention by something fierce, funny, grotesque. Demons could be distracted by the portrayal of everyday activities such as playing games or spinning or hunting, or even entertainers. They can be distracted by them. So that's why sometimes, the text has nothing to do with it, but here's little dancers on the bottom of a page. She was big on confuse the demons. And here, this plays into the idea that demons cannot pass a knot without untying it. They can't, when they see kind of something to get into, they have to go through it. And this is why you can tell at a quick look the difference between Celtic knotwork and Viking knotwork. Viking knotwork has a terminus because they're not capturing demons, but those Christian Celtic knots don't have a terminus. So the demon, once he gets in there, he gets caught. Can't get through it. Terminus ending, where it terminates a terminal, like a bus terminal is the end of the line. So a terminus is that. Now, I love this because you don't expect it. This is 11th century Spain. Is that fabulous?
That's gorgeous.
Wouldn't you look at that and go, oh, Celtic knotwork? No, Spain. And I love these.
Inquisition.
Is yes, nobody.
Huggies.
Inquisition's a ways away, but again, we have
Yes.
these knots that don't terminate. They just keep on going to trap the demons. And again, we have this is Carolingian. Same thing. We have these knots that don't end with the idea that, of trapping these demons. And of course, here, this is kind of late, but, even the white work, same thing about, making this kind of impenetrable barrier around the words and the person, that is in contact with it.
Like a web.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think about, somebody could probably clarify that they seem like dream catchers. Aren't dream catchers for bad?
I was thinking that too.
Yeah.
Dream catchers are for, usually they're given to babies, like for their cribs to catch the bad dreams, and then the sunlight kills the dreams caught in the web.
Ooh, I like it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, so is that, and I love that this stuff is happening all over the planet. We're making webs, to catch the scaries. Isn't that just bitching? Don't you just love that? Anyway, yay, history can be fun. Let's see. Oh, and this is really, so confusing the demons, with mazes and all that. And then I love this one. This is fooling the demons. Now, nowadays we say break a leg to an actor, right? And that's a way of you're cursing them. You're, break a leg. So it's weird. So now they're cursed, so they can't be cursed anymore. It's the same way that in Greek weddings they spit on the bride. In some traditions, when you have a neighbor move in, you actually get together and have a party, and then you throw rocks in their yard. It's the same kind of thing. The French say, "Here's mud in your eye." Well, of course, it used to be, "Here's merde in your eye," and of course, merde means shit. Here's shit in your eye. So you're fooling the demons that this thing has already been cursed. Okay, so I think it's kind of cool. That's so that's another way. So that's why you're seeing things being pooped on. They are a lot of them. They can show up in the Getty a lot, but people catching turds, people getting turds out of anyway, it's just really weird. But yeah, so that's why you're seeing a lot of pooping and scatological stuff, is the idea that is already going on, so that the demon could go, oh, check, that's checked off.
So then Maggie is blessing our whole front yard.
Yeah. Yes, our homes are blessed by our dogs.
I was going to say the smiling poo emoji is just returning.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Oh, and I want to show you one of my favorites, and it's so horrific, and I absolutely love it. Going back to vulvas.
Ooh.
Isn't that awful? And
that's
scary?
Like a heavy metal album cover.
It does. There is new under the sun, man. I know. And it's so weird. The colors are weird on this. Everything's weird on this. And that's from a lectern, a celestial lectern from 1548. Is that creepy?
It's funny to think that nobody drew creepier demons than monks and and priests.
Oh, okay. Let me clear up a misconception about the vast majority of the things that I've shown you here. The book production, we talk about, we don't talk about the Dark Ages anymore. We talk about the early Middle Ages. In the early Middle Ages, monastic houses were creating books. Yes. But by about 1300, it became very secularized.
Secularized. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And so this, like 90% of what I showed you here is from a secular workshop. So yeah, it's super important. And I know most of us here identify as women. There were a lot of female illuminators, because a book, as you can imagine, in its production can be given away in what's called choirs, sections. And so those sections can be sent out to illuminators. It could be drawn in, and then it could be painted out. And a lot of women did it in their, what we call spare time, at home. And then those could be picked up and so on. So it provided a lot of income for a lot of women. And of course, they're all nameless because, they were just part of the machine.
Do you think they used maker's marks hidden in their illumination?
Mm-mm.
No, they did not. And even the maestros, the rock stars of illumination and calligraphy, the Limburg brothers didn't even sign their work. There's a scholar who got really, really, really excited because he found a little R on the top of one of the towers of one of the pieces, and he thinks that's the maker's mark for one of the brothers, but it could be a hair.
No.
They weren't. This was not a major art. This was a minor art. And even though you have people like Albrecht Dürer doing it and the Limburg brothers doing stuff like this, it's not considered high art. This is a workaday thing. These are even the most beautiful. We're supposed to be working things. And then I have this other one of my favorites here, is from Catherine of Cleves, and this demon with his eyes bulging out. How could you not love that? Is that the greatest thing? That demon is working hard and he's pulling at your heart. And then, okay, these are those the most wonderful things you've ever seen?
Huh. They look like
They're on a
like something
manuscript?
from Wallace and Gromit almost.
Yes. They do. They look like hand puppets to me. And
Yeah.
that's 12th century church in England, in Herefordshire, England, 1145. I just had to show you those because they're like my favorite. I just exhale when I see them. Just too wonderful. But anyway,
Feel
they
like-
were to look down on people and keep them safe.
Feel like it's Waldorf and Statler of the church.
Yeah.
They
have that vibe, yeah.
They do. And so the last way, I know I've got all these ways. So the fifth way, that was to frighten the demons. And that could be according to many, many scholars, the best way to scare off demons was to present them with something that was a force stronger than themselves. And this is where we get the vulva. Thank you. It is believed that if you're a woman being chased by a demon, you could actually show them your vulva and you turn around and scream and run away. But the idea is that it was powerful. And I know that was probably a leftover from, way back. It might be, I just bought a book on Sheila Nigig that I haven't read. So I'm going to look into that. But also, so images of Christ in as many forms, a lion, a lamb, a pelican, a cross, all those would be things to frighten the demons. Marian symbols, all those things, the cornflower, the ladybug, the fleur-de-lis, the lily, those would all be Marian symbols to frighten the demons. God's representative, so like bishops or saints or the king, who are all representatives of God on earth, frighten the demons away. And it was also recognized that a force, Anyway, so yeah, those things, you know, are there existing. I love how they just went like something like this one. I'd love to show you this one. These people went all out they wanted to get everything, you know, to protect this manuscript like nobody's business. I love it. Yes, it is a dog fish chasing a fish rabbit, like you do. Okay. There is, you know, there's a knot to trap the demons. There's a king's head here, so that's going to protect. There's a little white wabbit here. White wabbit who's going to rip your lungs out. You know, we have a weeny weeny bishop up here. We have a white dog, and the white dog is, oh, and we have another white dog wearing a capuchon like they do. The other thing about a white dog, and white dogs show up and they show up and they show up, is also they were invoked against mildew. And we all know that books have one of their major enemies is mildew. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Now, of course, this is representing, you know, fealty and fidelity and all those things. Dogs have many, many meanings, but it's pretty cool when you start looking to see how many white dogs are just kind of thrown in there. I just find them absolutely wonderful. But so there's lots to look at. There's lots to see. Oh God, and I just have to show you this. It is a bunny who's wearing a pilgrim's satchel with, of course, he has this little escalope here. So we know he's going to Saint Compostela. What is it? Somebody can say it for me. He's going to the, oh gosh, what's the big, the place that everybody goes? De Compostela.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Anyway, but he's got his,
Santiago.
Yes.
what's that? It's, yeah. Isn't he adorable? I had to show him to you. Anyway, so that's kind of, okay, hello. Oh, there I am. So that's kind of a tour of you know, of the margins and of the meaning. And I feel like we've come such a long way from, well, it's just pretty, or they're just eating their paint, or, you know, whatever. Anyway, so does anybody have any questions or comments on that? You know, this is a journey that's gonna take me the rest of my, well, if I keep up with it, it'll take me the rest of my life. I mean, there's so much to learn.
So one thing that I was struck by with the symbolism that you're showing, and I also have your book. I'll have to go look and see which edition it is, because I may need to upgrade to the 3rd edition. Was the invitation for King Charles and Camilla's wedding, and the gentleman who did the invitation was one of the former head scribes for the crown.
Right.
And there was a ton of symbolism in there, lots of flowers that were related to the royal family. And there was a number of articles that came out that talked about the connection to each of those images that he put in there.
That's neat. That's really cool.
Yeah, I'm like, I want to go back and look at those flowers with respect to the descriptions of those flowers, the definitions that you get. Not only is it a cornflower, but what does it mean? And so it was interesting that that type of symbolism might still be used. And you said the Victorian era also. I know they knew a lot about the symbolism of flowers and gifting of flowers that we do today. And we could be making all kinds of mistakes with the flowers that we choose to gift in terms of their symbolism.
It's only a mistake if somebody cares. But that's another thing that I've done on occasion when I've been scribing, is using like regional flowers or state flowers of the recipient. That might be something that might, you might want to think about if you really want to do something that's quite floral. Think about think about flowers that, native plants that grow in your area. And wouldn't it be cool to give, a duchy or a pelican and have it all, local foliage? Kind of cool. So there's lots of things you can do as a modern scribe to, think about. That would be so personal. If somebody, loves their kingdom, to have it, flowers that you see in the kingdom. Right. Just a thought. So, but I always feel badly that we don't get to see these manuscripts in their real, the glory when you see them shining like that, like they really do. Kind of makes me sad. I'm wondering if we have one I would show.
Yeah, often the gold just doesn't photograph.
No, it photographs well. Yeah. Ooh, this one's right. Oh, this one's kind of nice. Now this is one of my works, but I just wanted to show you what the gold, how it can look on these real pieces.
Oh,
See how shiny that is and how glorious it is. So can you imagine looking at a page of, or, a whole book full of things that have that much gold on them?
Wow.
Be fun. Yeah,
I
all
like
those sparklies.
I like the faces and the leaves too.
yeah, I was just saying that.
Yeah.
Was there a cabbage patch?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you can hide things in there, all kinds of things in there too. But
I've heard of doing Easter eggs in scrolls for the kingdom, like when people get scrolls.
yes, yeah. One of my former apprentices did a pelican scroll, and it was done in the style of the Luttrell Psalter. I'm sure. Is everybody familiar with the Luttrell Psalter? A lot of monsters in it, and such. Oh, here, you know what? Just a second, I'll get it. This is the Luttrell, or the facsimile of the Luttrell Psalter. Anyway, the reason why I brought this up is, so it had, you can see this lovely diapering here.
Yeah.
And she had a capital similar to this, and then it had this diapering. And if you looked really, really close at the diapering, they were Mickey Mouse ears and the Death Star, and Mickey Mouse and the Death Star, and all this crazy cray stuff. And it was all, I mean, when you stood back, it was a perfect Luttrell Psalter piece, right? But when you got close, and there you can see that another, kind of diapering there. When you got close, it was just, oh my gosh, it was the most wonderful thing. Like there were two, I mean, there's lots of monsters on this. There were two guys fighting at the top of the scroll. I don't think I'm gonna be able to find it, but imagine, two guys fighting up here, and there was one had the shield of the Federation, and the other one had a Klingon. He was a Klingon with a bat'leth. But as I said, you sat back, you couldn't, you didn't see that. Well, I'm not going to turn this around. Oh, isn't that fabulous? So anyway, it was the most gorgeous thing, and I heartily enjoy when people do that. And so, as I said, it was perfectly medieval at about 4 feet. But if you got closer, you're like, what is going on there? Aren't these just lovely? And this would be shining. This would blind us, kind of like this. Woo, the gold up there. Kind of if we saw the real thing. Yeah, this is, well, a famous little bit from the Luttrell Psalter. Another issue is that we often will see demons over and over again because they were actually in pattern books. Yeah, so this is not all, it's not pulled out from, well, something like the Luttrell Psalter. Yeah, they were, I don't know, they were getting into the ergot bread or something. But, for the most part, what we see is there's standard monsters that we see over and over again. Actually, I just got this really cool book from Powell's. Powell's for those. There is a Powell's Books, Powell's City of Books in Portland, Oregon, and another one in Chicago. I've only been to the Kalamazoo, the International Medieval Congress, and Chicago brings a truck full of books. They bring all their medieval stuff together.
Yeah, it's like a maze in there.
It's insane and so much to love. Anyway, I just got this book, and the coolest thing, medieval drawings. And it does have, these are from model books. These are from model books. Wow. You know, some, and now that one is not from a model book, but anyway, it's a really interesting collection of just drawings. Some are from manuscripts, and they're undone pages, you know, unfinished pages. That's weird. Why in the world is this one in here? I don't even know. Because that looks finished. And oh, this is just a grisaille style. Yay! Yeah, don't let anybody tell you they don't do medieval, they don't do watercolor style in period. Look at that. Ooh. Anywho.
Will you show the cover of that book again? Medieval Drawing, M.W. Evans.
Yeah. Yes. And we can look at the back and no barcode. Even that's just gorgeous, isn't it? Look at that. Ooh.